Well, I will talk a little bit about the day that we actually drove our tractors onto the Capitol grounds. It was February 5th, 1979, and there were about 20 tractors that had spent the previous night at Cherry Hill Camp City, I believe was the correct name of it. And of course, communications were difficult in those days, but sometime early that morning we headed for the Capitol and followed the person in front of us, of course. I always followed Jim Titus with his sign on the back that was designed by Marge Scheifler. And it said that Carter gave us a bum steer and had a big old picture of a skinny old steer, so I had a lot of looks at that steer. But anyway, as we traveled into the Capitol, at one point somebody needed coffee, so we just all kind of stopped in the middle of the road and got coffee. Or a few of them did. I didn't. Most of us just stayed in our tractors. But at one point the confusion was getting greater and greater as we neared the Capitol, and at one point a policeman did stop our little contingent of tractors, and he just happened to be right where I was. So he was standing with his back up against the front of my tractor, and they were allowing cross traffic to get through, and it was rather amusing because they wanted a bunch of cars to go through so they could get about their business, but the cars were going rather slow because they wanted to see what was going on, and the policemen were getting rather frustrated. At one point, another one motioned to the one standing in front of my tractor that he needed to come over there. So he started to walk off, and then all of a sudden he just turned around and shook his finger at me that I was supposed to stay there. And I said, okay, because some people probably would not have stayed there, but I did, and after a few minutes we continued on to the Capitol. Another point, we were just a few blocks from the Capitol, and we had to stop because one of the drivers from Haviland, Daryl Chenoweth, his tractor clipped a police car, and so he was stopped. Of course, the police car, his story was, pulled in front of him before he could stop. So we think it may have been a planned way to get our contingent of 20 tractors to stop. So that it took quite a while, we thought, for him to get his ticket, and they kept giving us a little bit of the runaround. So finally we figured out they weren't just going to let us go. So we received the word on the CB that we should stop the traffic on the left lane. So I just got 40-20 at an angle and put it in low and just started inching over into the left lane, and the cars, you'd be surprised how many were just squeezing through there until finally we got it stopped. And I was amused because over the CB I did hear somebody say, "Attaboy, 40-20." And then after a minute or two, a policeman came to my tractor and said, "Please back up," which I did. Of course, when I was backing up, another tractor near me was taking my place to block the traffic. So it was a little bit of a seesaw going on, but we did block the traffic until Daryl was cleared to go. And then we did continue on to the Capitol. There was a lot of apprehension, I guess you would call it, about what was going on. A lot of reports of tear gas and violence going on, and there was a little bit of that, but I don't think, in my opinion, a lot. Just a very small percent of people that you would call perhaps a little bit too radical. But most of us were just there to tell a story and about the family farm, and that's what we were doing. When we got there, the three tractors from Lewis decided, we parked on a side street and walked to the Capitol, where we were having a rally on the steps, and it was a lot of people. Many of the tractors actually parked on the mall, and we had this rally. It was kind of a pep talk and a little bit of the plans, which nobody knew whatever much the plan was going to be. There were a lot of police all dressed in riot gear and everywhere. And after the meeting, the three of us from Lewis decided to do some sightseeing. So we drove by the White House and most of the monuments. We were on our tractors. And after we'd spent some time doing that, we decided that maybe we should start heading back to the campground. It was in the late afternoon. And we left, and we did not know actually that the tractors on the mall were now imprisoned, so to speak, and could not leave. We just did not know that at that time. So the three of us were driving back to the campground, and no one was there, and it was getting dark, and I was tired, so I went to sleep, and pretty soon Marge and Ed and Lester arrived, and they had been looking for us. They didn't know where we were because all the other tractors were trapped on the mall, but they did a search and we were not there. So they were happy to find us safe back at the campground. And we were asked if we wanted to break in and be a part on the compound, but the three of us decided not to. It just created more problems as far as leaving. So we chose not to do that, although we did feel a little sad that perhaps we were not on the mall too with them.